Todd Zolecki, and he joins us live from Minnesota. They were talking a lot about Zolecki last night on the radio broadcast of the Phillies game, about him being, from that area out there and enjoying the wally out there, the fish of choice in Minnesota.
Walleye,
yeah.
Right?
Well, they were saying wally on the radio.
Oh.
So maybe they are incorrect. Todd Zolecki joins us here on the
already
Sports
laughing.
Bash. Yeah, you were a big topic of conversation when it was like 11-7 or so. That's how bored they got.
Yeah, that's you know you're getting pretty bored when you're talking about me in the broadcast. The game has gotten out of hand, and it's a painful experience to watch or listen to.
Yeah, well, let's get your opinion on. I'm looking at Pete Mackinnon the last couple of days, and it sounds like the reality of what should be happening is actually happening, and the frustration for him is coming out. Like, he basically is saying, look, this offense is inept. We are terrible offensively. Is he becoming very frustrated? Are you seeing a guy who is boiling over, the frustration starting to boil over here a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think he's getting frustrated, but I also think he knows there's only so much he can do. I've gotten a lot of people on Twitter saying, why does he keep saying he thinks his team is going to hit, and why doesn't he do something more? It's like, let's be realistic here. Let's be frank. The team is not that good. They're offensively. They don't have a lot of talent offensively. They haven't been good offensively since the beginning of the season, but they got ridiculously good starting pitching, and they got very good bullpen work. The first 40 games of the season, so that's why they were 24-17. But now the offense has continued to play poorly, and now the starting pitching in the bullpen has kind of like started to struggle. So as a result, they are where they are right now, and Pete's frustrated with it, but he also knows that this is a rebuilding season, so they're not going to press the panic button because there was no panic going into the season. Again, this is not a team that was. People said, "Oh, you know what? If everything breaks right, they can be a wild card team." Everybody was going, "Well, maybe they can make a small improvement upon last season's record and show enough positive signs that going into next season, people are feeling a little bit better about the situation." The
irony is he kind of called out the offense, and then last night they gave up 14 runs. So and the offense actually scored. That being said, he mentioned, I guess it was Monday afternoon, that hey, I can keep sticking with guys. I can keep rolling the same lineup out there. I can keep trying to find the hot guy. Is there a recipe for them, Todd, that you think is the best means for them to try to gain some consistency? Or should he just keep trying to roll the dice and find a hot guy? Do you think he should stick with the lineup or just keep trying to roll whoever he thinks the hot guy might be?
Well, yeah, that's been kind of the problem is he's been trying every day. He hasn't been able to go with a set lineup because no one's been hitting. So, he goes for Tyler Goodell for a couple of days. He goes 1 for 7. Then he tries, Jimmy Paradis. He goes 0 for 8. And then they try Peter Borders. So what he said yesterday is, I'm going to try to go for a set lineup going forward if I can. And so right now, I would think he's going to stick with Peter Borders in right field because he's actually the hottest player on the team. He's like 10 for his last 19 at-bats. He's got 2 doubles, a triple, a home run, 5 RBIs. And he's also your best defensive right fielder. And a lot of this part of the season is trying to help this young starting pitching staff develop some confidence and get a little bit more experience for the future. So, I kind of like that idea rather than just – because honestly, sometimes there didn't really seem to be much of a rhyme or reason why one guy was starting and one guy wasn't starting, other than, well, I haven't played this guy in a while. So maybe if he sticks with some guys, those guys will be able to get on track, get a little bit more comfortable play. Maybe it'll help a little bit. But again, Freddie Galvis is Freddie Galvis. Cesar Hernandez is Cesar Hernandez. No one's expecting these guys to come around. It's certainly not in the Phillies front office to go around and start all of a sudden they're going to catch fire and become 300 hitters if they play a little bit more often.
Todd Zolecki's with us. We're talking a little Phillies baseball as the Phillies take on the Twins tonight at Target Field, and Adam Morgan gets the start for the Phillies, 1-6, a 6.49 ERA. How important is tonight's start for Adam Morgan, Todd?
It's important. Certainly, Vince Velasquez is making a rehab start tonight in Reading, so Vince said the other day he thinks he's only going to need 1 rehab start. We'll see. Pitchers always say they need less time than they might actually need. So, but say he makes 2 starts, or maybe say he makes 3 rehab starts, whatever the number is, he's going to have to replace. He's going to replace somebody at some point. It's either going to be Adam Morgan or Zach Eflin. So, if Zach Eflin gets another start or 2, and Adam Morgan gets another start or 2, and Adam Morgan continues to struggle, and Zach Eflin shows a little bit of promise, I can see them certainly sticking with Zach Eflin and sending Adam Morgan down the minor leagues. But if Adam Morgan straightens out a little bit, maybe they'll send Zach back down for more seasoning in AAA, because he would not have been up at this point, obviously, unless there was an injury to Vince Velasquez.
So you're talking about struggling pitchers. How do you sum up Aaron Nola right now? Because another rough start for him, 3 innings last night. And are you able to put a pinpoint on what's wrong with Aaron Nola?
It has been totally baffling to me. I mean, he's healthy, and the only reason I can say that, or I believe that, is because his velocity is there. It's not like he's going from 92 to 87. His velocity is there. In fact, he was throwing a little bit harder last night. It's clearly a mechanical thing. This is a guy whose entire game is control. He doesn't walk anybody. He was among the top 10 in walks per 9 innings. Of like 109 pitchers or 129 pitchers in baseball just 3 starts ago, and he's walked 7 and 9 2/3 innings in his last 3 starts. So it's a mechanical issue. He says he feels like he's rushing his delivery a little bit, and so things are kind of getting out of whack. They hope that's the case, and if so, you hope that it's easily fixable, because without him, boy, oh boy, I mean, he was kind of honestly, guys, 3 starts ago, I was looking at the Phillies as all-star candidates. I said, all right, if for some reason Odubel Herrera would not make the team, because it's tough to crack the outfield. It's like really good outfielders, offensive outfielders in the National League. If Herrera for some reason wouldn't make it as a coach's selection, to me it would be at Aaron Nola. 3 starts ago, he was in top 10 in ERA, top 10 in WHIP, and I think he was 3rd in strikeout to walk ratio. I mean, he was having a really, really good season, kind of flying under the radar on a bad team. But now, that's what makes these last 3 starts so surprising. He was so good for so long, and then the wheels have just absolutely fallen off.
I agree with you. Same thing with Herrera. If he doesn't get the nod, I figured that he would be the guy would be Nola. I mean, he had an ERA under 3. He looked like the strikeouts were up, and he wasn't advertised, Todd, as a strikeout pitcher. When he came in, people thought he'd be more of like a Greg Maddux type, where he hits the corners and does that kind of stuff, where control would be his thing. But he was striking guys out, and all of a sudden, I mean, that's not a great lineup he faced last night either.
No, it's not a great lineup. It's not a good team. This is, and that is why it was even more surprising, because you go, okay, the Cubs, he's faced some good teams lately. But to lose and to get beat up as hard as he did against the Twins is shocking. And I believe he'll get it figured out. You're not that good for that long, and all of a sudden you forget how to pitch and you can't throw a strike again. And it would be so highly unusual. So I gotta think he's going to get it figured out eventually. Maybe not next start, but at some point he's going to get it figured out, and he'll be back and pitching with some level of success. But it's also important to note, I know we've talked about this before, nobody expected Aaron Nola to be, the next Clayton Kershaw, the next Noah Syndergaard, the next, bona fide ace. A lot of people thought he was going to be a very solid number 3 with some upside for more. I still think he's got upside to be a very good number 2 type of guy, and time will tell. But so a guy like that is going to have some struggles from time to time.
Talking with Todd Zolecki from MLB.com. He covers the Phillies. They're in Minnesota, getting ready to take on the Twins tonight. And obviously, we talk about a little bit over a month from that trade deadline. But at this time, the last couple of years, Todd, we'd be talking about, the Hamels, the Utleys, the Rollins, all the bigger name guys. Are there going to be guys in that conversation this year that we should start putting our eye on as we'll get closer to that trade deadline in about a month?
Yeah, I think so. I think the number 1 guy would be Jeremy Hellickson. He's not going to totally change a rotation. I think if you're a contending team, and say you fall short, I don't know who's going to all be available come the trade deadline, but say there's a couple aces available, and you're looking for that help, and you fall short. Jeremy Hellickson might be a pretty good alternative to shore up that back end of the rotation. And he pitched pretty well in his last start. He struggled in the first inning and really dialed in after that. But I think he's got some value. And honestly, he kind of reminds me of the value that Joe Blanton had in 2008. If you remember, the Phillies were looking for CC Sabathia. They pushed hard for CC Sabathia. They just didn't have enough talent to get it done. CC goes to the Brewers. Pat Gillick's philosophy was, you know what, even if you can make an incremental improvement, make the incremental improvement. He went out and got Joe Blanton. Joe Blanton ended up solidifying that rotation. You know, he pitched a great game for the World Series. So I think Jeremy Hellickson could be that guy. And in terms of other guys the Phillies have that might be available that would be of interest, I personally would trade Genmar Gomez in a heartbeat. I know he's pitched well, relatively well as a closer. But to me, what Genmar Gomez shows you is that you can find closers, and you can find them I don't want to say relatively easy, but you know what I mean. Genmar Gomez entered spring training or entered the season as the Phillies' 6th, 7th inning guy. The Phillies had absolutely no interest in him pitching the 8th inning, much less the 9th inning. Out of desperation, they throw him in the 9th inning. He's got 19 saves, so that tells you that if they trade Genmar Gomez, they should be able to develop another closer relatively easily. So I absolutely would trade him. Strike while the iron is hot. You know, certainly if you're a team looking for a backup catcher, the veteran presence, Chooch is a possibility. I think Andrew Bailey is a possibility. David Hernandez, I think, was lining up as an interesting trade chip, but he has not pitched well at all lately. So I think he's hurt his value. And, of course, if somebody would actually call on Ryan Howard, which I highly, highly, highly doubt, teams were calling on him last year when he was actually hitting right-handed pitching, they would obviously welcome a trade, but that would be absolutely floored if that actually transpired.
Ryan Howard, one of the people with an for last night. Todd Zolecki's with us here on the Sports Bash. What did you hear, Todd, about Mickey Moniak and his press conference? Because Mike and I were both impressed with his poise, and he looked a little older and more mature than an 18-year-old.
Yeah, that does stand out about Mickey Moniak. He's a really impressive guy to talk to. And I was talking about this with somebody yesterday here in Minneapolis, and I said, I don't know what that's, doesn't mean anything necessarily, whether or not he's going to be a success or not, but you certainly would rather have a mature, engaging, thoughtful number 1 overall pick than somebody that seems kind of self-centered, arrogant, really, maybe not as intelligent, maybe a guy that you go, oh my gosh, what's this guy going to be like if he develops into a star? Is he going to become an attitude problem? So that part is certainly encouraging. He's a high makeup guy. They are really high on him in a year where there was no consensus number 1 overall pick. There's about 5 or 6 guys that they thought were kind of on the same level. They took Mickey because they think he's got some upside. They also know they could sign him for a lot less than the slot allotment of $9 million. And that would allow them to maybe draft some guys that might be harder to sign. And it's a numbers game. So they signed him under slot. They got a couple more high schoolers in the second and third rounds, and they're going to have both of those guys signed real shortly as well.
Yeah, Todd, one of the things that, there's a kid yesterday, 18 years old, and as Pete mentioned, I was impressed. He's sitting there talking about what counts are the best to hit on and what he's thinking about when the pitches, when he's in a certain count. So that was impressive. Talking about his conversations with Ted Williams, his grandfather played with him, and it was interesting to hear from him anyway. He also talked about how he's played with some of the other Phillies draft picks. So he sounded like a guy that was very confident and very mature. But what's his next step? Where does he go from here? And typically, okay, he's a high school kid, so we're hearing a little bit about him. He's getting his 15 minutes now. When will we hear about him again?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, he's going to start in the Gulf Coast League, the rookie-level Gulf Coast League, along with Kevin Gowdy, who reportedly signed today, and Cole Stobie, the high school shortstop from Nebraska that signed last week, third-round pick. They're all going to go to the Gulf Coast League. Realistically speaking, you're talking, if this guy's absolutely unbelievable, fast riser, better than advertised, I'm thinking 3 years. It would be the earliest. He'd be 21 at that point. That's I think Jimmy Rollins came up at 21. A lot of those young risers. J.P. Crawford right now, he's 21. He's in AAA. So you look at it like that. If he really performs well, probably 3 years before we hear from Nick or see Mickey Moniak at Citizens Bank Park. But but they feel like they have time. They have time to develop them. A team like this, it's a numbers game. You want to draft as many what you believe are talented players as possible, and knowing that not all of them are going to hit, you hope that some of them hit, and obviously they hope that he hits, and he hits big.
So speaking of late risers or last-minute movement on the pitches, JP, who you mentioned, Nick Williams, will you see those guys up anytime soon?
Yeah, I think Nick Williams has a shot to be up. I'm going to say maybe as early as next month. J.P. Crawford, quite frankly, he's hitting 200 right now, or around 200 right now. So he certainly has not warranted a promotion. In fact, the way he's been playing in AAA, you could say he didn't really warrant a promotion in AAA at this point. So I think of the position players they have, the top position player prospects, I think Nick Williams is obviously the closest, quite frankly, because they have the biggest need in the outfield. You have Odubel Herrera going forward, and then when you talk about the future of the Phillies' outfield, who do you have there exactly? Cody Ashley hasn't really done much. Tyler Goodell, he probably, if he wasn't a Rule 5 draft pick, he'd be in AAA this season, and he probably wouldn't be in the big leagues at all. So you really don't know what you have there. But I think Nick Williams is probably the closest. JP, I'm not really sure if he'll be up. If he had come up and really started to play well in AAA, I think he would have been up at some point. But he's got to earn that promotion.
Talking to Todd Zolecki here, Phillies and Twins, and of course this team lost 8 in a row. They got outscored on the homestand 42-7, and you just talked about some offensive players there that could help them out, possibly down the road. We'll see if it sounds like Matt Klintak. Seems like he's going to play it kind of, because JP, as you just mentioned, he's kind of struggling anyway down there. He's hitting, 200, 209, something like that,
right,
down at AAA. Right. So it's not like he's going to come up, flip the switch, and all of a sudden things are going to be good. Nick has performed a little bit better, but I guess with that, earlier in the month he had kind of said, hey, look, we got guys up here we kind of want to see do some things. Now, are there guys on this team that you think have been given enough of an opportunity, that you've seen enough of?
Oh, sure. I mean, you start with Cesar Hernandez. You go over a little bit. You see Freddie Galvis. Cody Ashley, I think you kind of know what you have there. I think they actually think he's a little bit better than he has shown, but so far he hasn't really shown it. When you talk about the position players, I think they've seen enough of Cameron Rupp to know that he actually could be, if you're going to have, he might not be an everyday catcher or a front-line catcher, but he's the guy who actually could be a part of this team's future in a platoon role, maybe in a backup role, maybe in a guy that catches 90 games and the other guy catches 72, that type of thing. So they've certainly seen a lot of these guys, but I think they want to give Goodell a little bit more of a shot, Cody Ashley a little bit more of a shot. They want to get Michael Franco on. They know what they got in Michael Franco. At least they hope they know what they have in Michael Franco. He struggled this season, but they think he's going to be better. But I think the reason, going back to kind of what you're saying about Klintak, he's trying to be patient because I think everybody kind of got fooled or excited a little bit by that 24-17 start. They're like, oh my gosh, this team actually could be really, really good a lot sooner than we think. And I kept telling people, I said, listen, look at that run differential. They are getting outscored by a ton. And while it is cool that everybody says, wow, this team is so good in one-run games, that's also not like the greatest of compliments in the world. Winning 3-2, 2-1 all the time, that's not the greatest thing to hang your hat on. Because at some point, the pitching is going to fall apart and you're going to struggle. So the point being, I don't think the Phillies feel pressure to call up some of these young guys because they went into this season going, you know what, we're going to struggle. This is another rebuilding year. If we can, cut our losses from 99 to 90 or 89 or whatever, we'd consider that a nice accomplishment. Let's see these guys that we have in the big leagues right now, and then when the time comes, let's call up these prospects. So there's no panic from the front office going, oh my gosh, we're struggling right now. We got to call up Nick Williams and J.P. Crawford and Andrew Knapp and Jorge Alfaro because this team is just struggling right now. They knew they were going to struggle, and this is just them kind of coming back to earth a little bit. So for that reason, I think they still want to be patient with the prospects. And I always tell people, you don't want to screw around with these guys. I know it's frustrating to see, a lot of these guys continue to struggle, but have we all forgotten about how Dominic Brown kind of got jerked around and got screwed up, maybe possibly? I mean, the Phillies kind of admitted that in the past. Do you want to take Nick Williams and shuffle him back and down from the minor leagues to the major leagues? Do you want to do that to J.P. Crawford, Jorge Alfaro, Andrew Knapp, Jake Thompson? No. You want these guys to come up and stick. So make sure they're ready. Bring them up at the right time. Don't yank them back and forth. Don't screw these guys up, because 2016 was always about next season and beyond. It was never about, oh, boy, if maybe we can surprise some people, we can make the playoffs or anything like that.
Todd Zolecki in Minnesota for the Phils and Twins. They started a stretch on May 23rd in Detroit. Since then, they are 5-23. They've lost 8 in a row.
8 straight, 12-13, outscored 97-33. That run differential he's talking about. Try the Juicy Lucy, Todd. That's my recommendation. To ask somebody about that.
Yeah.
The Juicy
I love it.
Lucy. All right, Todd Zolecki, MLB.com, at Todd Zolecki on Twitter. Thanks, Todd.
Thank you, guys. Take care.